XPointer, an X-ray telepointer for relaxed space-time WYSIWIS and collaborative 3D design systems. 3D telepointers allow users to point at an object of interest in collaborative 3D editing systems. 3D telepointers laser beam. Conventional 3D telepointers are restricted to pointing at the foremost object, for example, the cup and peanuts. To point at a further object, for example, the apple, users must change their viewing perspectives to have that object as the foremost object. Alternatively, users can move or delete the blocking object, for example, the cup. Conventional 3D telepointers are also restricted for relaxed space but strict time WYSIWIS collaborative environments. 3D telepointers are able to point at correct target, that is, the cup, regardless of the viewing perspective. However, 3D telepointers may point at incorrect targets if they are viewed from different timelines. In this example, the 3D telepointer is pointing at the apple instead of the cup. Introduce XPointer, an advanced X-ray telepointing technique for pointing at any object in relaxed space-time WYSIWIS collaborative 3D design systems. XPointer is by default pointing at the closest object in the pointing direction as conventional 3D telepointers. To point at a further object, users can use the X-ray manipulator to increase the XPointer's penetration. After the first penetration increment, XPointer penetrates through the cup to point at the apple. After the second penetration increment, XPointer also penetrates through the apple to point at the tree. After a penetration decrement, XPointer points at the apple again. The XPointer intelligently maintains the last penetrated object, called penetration border object, defined by the user, that is, the cup. The XPointer maintains the cup as the border object to keep pointing at the apple even though the peanut is now in the pointing direction. XPointer's border object is unchanged even though the XPointer is moved away from the apple to point at the cherry. This XPointer behavior allows users to point at any object beyond the penetration border object, for example, the apple and cherry, without having to repeatedly set the XPointer's penetration. To assist the local user in establishing a pointer-target association, XPointer is augmented with oblique view, a 90-degree difference view of the 3D workspace with a virtual local XPointer. An XPointer achieves fine-grained pointing even when it is viewed from different timelines. For effective usage of XPointer in relaxed space-time WYSIWIS, mouse users are provided with necessary information to judge whether other users will be able to see the pointing. A view frustum provides the information about the viewing scope of a remote user and whether they are in the same timeline, dimmer if different timelines. A time icon is shown on the top of the oblique view window upon the establishment of a new pointer-target association, if the target is animated. XPointer points consistently even in the face of concurrent XPointing and editing work with the help of dynamic XPointing effect determination, DXD, scheme. Example 1, after concurrent XPointing at the apple and moving the cherry into the pointing direction, XPointers consistently point at the cherry. Example 2, after concurrent XPointing at the apple and moving the cherry away from the pointing direction, XPointers consistently point at the apple. Consistent XPointing is maintained all the time even though the mouse user has settled with XPointing. XPointing at the cherry is updated to point at the apple after the cherry is moved away from the pointing direction. And the XPointing at an animated target, for example, the cup, is always maintained even though the viewing timeline is changed. XPointer is supported in varying degrees of strict and relaxed space-time WYSIWIS collaborative environments. Relaxed space and relaxed time WYSIWIS. Relaxed space and strict time WYSIWIS. Strict space and relaxed time WYSIWIS. Strict space and strict time WYSIWIS. Thank you for viewing.